Michaela Chester here with NCAA Digital. I am joined by Elizabeth Grimsley, the editor-in-chief and founder of College Gym News, just a one-stop shop for all things gymnastics coverage. And Elizabeth, I've got you with me because the bracket's just been unveiled and regional selections for the 2022 tournament. So we've got a lot to talk about, but I'm going to start you off pretty broad here. Just some overarching storylines for the tournament this year, if you could share some of that with us.
Yeah, so I think the biggest storyline is probably between Florida, Oklahoma, and Michigan. They're just all coming off of the same score at the conference championships last weekend. They all scored a 198.2, and they're all ranked first, second, and third. They're all one seeds for regionals, so I think that's pretty exciting knowing that they're all so close, and it makes nationals even more cutthroat when we get there. So that's what I think everyone will be watching to see how those teams perform. Even though they're at all different regionals, it'll be sort of like a primer for nationals.
Absolutely. Let's go now into each regional. We can get a little bit more into the details of each one. But let's start with the Norman regional. Obviously, Oklahoma, the number one seed in the tournament. And that second qualifying spot, it could be kind of a battle. What do you see in this regional?
Yeah, so Minnesota is number 8 and California is number 9, and there's kind of sneaky little Arizona State in there as well. Both California and Minnesota were at nationals last year, but this year, unfortunately, only one team can make it due to the way the draw happened. But I mean, both of those teams are so closely ranked. Minnesota has had a little bit of trouble on the road this season. They've been much better at home. So that may play into this since they'll be competing at Oklahoma. And California is always a good team. It can put up the scores when it needs to. So I think that'll really come down to who's the better team on the day, and that'll end up affecting some of those individual qualifiers as well. So that'll probably be the most exciting regional for in a couple weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to Auburn's regional. Obviously, Florida's in this regional. You've got Auburn with Olympian Suni Lee. What do you see as the main storylines in this one?
Yeah, so this one's really exciting as well. Auburn's competing at home. So while if it was competing at another regional, it might not have had as easy of a chance of advancing, but it'll have that home crowd support behind it. And actually, the last time Florida and Auburn competed against each other at Auburn Arena, they both tied with a 198.575. It's the highest score in the country this season. So I think both teams are going to be trying to beat the other one, even though the top two advance. So that's going to be really exciting as well.
Is there any upset potential in this regional that you see or intriguing matchups?
Yeah, so the other two teams that are seeded in this regional are Denver and Ohio State. And Denver has really struggled with injuries this year. They had all of their seniors from 2021 come back for their 5th year, but all 3 of them got Achilles tears. So they've only had to put up 5 gymnasts on vault and bars since then. So if anything goes wrong at any of those events where they're putting 5 up 5 count rather than having that drop score, I mean, it could really spell disaster for them. And Ohio State, while it didn't perform as well as it wanted to at the Big Ten Championship, it's going to be right there. It's a really good team. It scored a 197 this season. And depending what Denver does, it has an excellent chance of advancing to the regional final.
How about the Raleigh regional? So obviously, we've got UNC, LSU, UCLA, but what are some quick storylines in this regional?
So this one has a couple heartfelt storylines. Sammy Durante is a 5th year at LSU, and her mother, Dana Durante, is the head coach at UNC. So that'll be really fun. Dana obviously hasn't gotten to watch her daughter at a lot of her final season meets this year, but they'll be competing together. And then there's also the case of Lolly Dekanoidze, who is a star freshman for North Carolina, but she unfortunately recently had a season-ending injury. So that'll kind of put North Carolina's chances of advancing out of that round 1 into jeopardy, as well as she qualified it as an individual, but there aren't alternates named, so it kind of takes away from maybe someone else who might have qualified because she wasn't able to withdraw.
Okay, and how about UCLA in this regional? This is a team that's been really hot lately. So do you see any upset potential with them in this regional?
Yeah, I think UCLA probably has the biggest chance of having upset this postseason, just because, like you said, they've been so hot lately. They have a number of Olympians on the team that have been really excelling, and they have done a little bit better at home. But I mean, you can really never count out UCLA in the postseason. So they're definitely one to watch, especially if LSU has an off day like it did at the SEC championship, where it only finished fifth. If UCLA has a good day, it could be right there and take that national qualifying spot.
All right, and then moving on to Seattle. So you've got Utah, Alabama, Oregon State. Obviously, we've got a few Olympians in there. Utah's Grace McCallum and obviously Jade Carey at Oregon State. So what do you see in this regional?
Yeah, so I think Utah is pretty much a shoe-in. I don't want to say that because anything can happen in gymnastics, but I think it'll have a pretty good chance of qualifying to nationals. Alabama is at a slight disadvantage now because its star all-arounder Luisa Blanco, who's also the reigning beam champion, was injured on her beam dismount in the last rotation of the SEC championship last weekend. So her status is kind of unknown. She tweeted that she's hoping to be back, but you really never know how those things go. So Alabama could be in a little bit of trouble because of that. It should still advance to nationals, but Oregon State has a history of upsetting teams at regionals, so it has a chance as well. But if it doesn't, Jade Carey is almost certainly going to advance to nationals with or without her team. So that should be really exciting. She'll join Grace McCallum, another of her Olympic teammates for Utah, if Utah advances as well. So that'll be like an Olympian heavy regional, so it should be exciting.
Absolutely. And just really quickly, I want to put you on the spot here and ask a little bit about the individual competition. See if you can give us any front runners or top prospects for national championships this year.
Yeah, so I mean, these races are always really exciting. The scores are always so close, and you often get ties for the top spot on the podium. I think for the all-around, Jade Carey is probably the front runner, just because she's been so consistently excellent this year. Trinity Thomas and Leanne Wong, both Florida gymnasts, have the highest all-around score in the country this year with 39.85. So they're obviously contenders as well. And then a slew of everyone else, a slew of other competitors. On vault, you're probably going to see a Michigan gymnast on the podium, just because Michigan has been so good at vault this year, sticking landings left and right. Sierra Brooks just got a 10 at the Big Ten Championship. And then Haley Bryant for LSU, whenever she sticks her vault, it's basically an automatic 10. So she can do that in nationals. She'll probably win the title. Bars, it's anyone's game. I mean, there's Trinity Thomas, there's Sumi Solis. She got a 10 at SECs. And she has a couple of different routine compositions that she can throw depending on how she feels on the day. And then if Minnesota qualifies as a team or Lexi Ramler qualifies as an individual, she's great on bars. There's a couple of others as well. Jordan Childs, another Olympian, has scored a 10 on bars this year. Obviously, Jade Carey. On beam, again, it's going to be so tight. Reagan Smith has been number one for a majority of the year. She's an Oklahoma gymnast. She unfortunately fell on beam at Big 12s this past weekend, but it seems like when she has a mistake, she always ends up really killing it the next few times out. She has a number of 10s as well. And then floor, I mean, I've said this for every event so far, but it's another tight one. Nia Reed for Florida has a number of 10s. She was number one for a while on the event. Trinity Thomas has a number of 10s. I think she hasn't scored below 995 all year on the event. There's Darian Goborn for Auburn, who's great and a crowd favorite. I mean, Jade Carey again. There's Jordan Childs again, or Shea Campbell, another UCLA gymnast if she qualifies. So, I mean, that's really going to be a dogfight for all of the individual titles this year.
Well, that got me excited. I'm very much so looking forward to this now. Elizabeth, thank you so much for breaking down this bracket. Regionals coming up soon, so excited for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me.